I was able to walk again. I had nowhere else to go. Why do I live in my car? Hi, and welcome to my video. I'm so glad you could make it. Today we're going to talk about how I came to be living in my car. That thing that I sleep in at the back there. But before we get to that, I want to give you a little bit of history on how I ended up here. But I'll let you know right away, this is choice. Kind of a forced choice, but I had it in mind already. I've always felt a strong desire to travel. But you know how it is, life gets in the way. Kids, jobs, rent, bills. I'm sure you understand. So let me tell you a little bit of my history, just so you understand how I got here. Back in 2004, I was in a major car accident and I had a cracked tailbone and a broken pelvic bone and whiplash. I was in a wheelchair for a couple of months, and through physiotherapy and sheer determination, I was able to walk again on my own, unaided. However, that accident has limited my mobility. I can't stand for long periods of time, nor can I walk a great deal. I still do take small hikes just to keep in shape, if round is a shape. And because of the accident, my choice of employment has been very limited. However, stubborn me, I went and took a very physical job in, was it 2017, I believe it was. That was doing underground utility locates. A very physically and challenging job. I took that job because it paid really, really well and it had excellent benefits. And I kind of liked the idea of being outdoors all the time, even back then. Around 2007, I did live in my pickup truck. So this is prior to this latest job that I had just told you about. At the time, I was working a night shift, and it was actually perfect for living in your vehicle. I had nowhere else to go, and I was kind of forced into living in my vehicle at that time. So I would say that that wasn't really choice. That was necessity. And it was the middle of winter, so I really didn't have much of a choice. I was making, back then it was minimum wage, maybe $15 an hour. With the graveyard shift premium, I was a data entry operator, but I really liked that job. Like it was a cool job. And I'd get off at 7 o'clock in the morning and I'd go and grab myself some breakfast at McD's or something like that and a coffee. And then I'd go down to Lake Simcoe in one of the parks and I'd watch the sunrise. It was a great way to start a day, or in my case, end the day. And after that, I would go and find a spot which was surprisingly easy during the day to stay for 8 hours or 7 hours or however long I decided to sleep. My favorite spot was the carpool lot. And because I didn't have a commercial vehicle, I was able to park there. By the way, if you are doing a physical job, meaning you're stuck in one location while you're living in your vehicle, I would strongly suggest that you get something that you're working nights, because you don't have an issue finding a place to sleep. Any park, any parking lot, just about anywhere, nobody questions your car sitting there. You won't get a knock on the door. Last year, I was working as a site administrator for a company down in St. Catharines, and due to downsizing, I got a layoff notice. That was at the end of July. So I spent the full month of August having this grand pity party. Oh boy, did I have a pity party. Finally one morning, I said enough is enough, and I went for a drive. And I ended up on Vancouver Island, the furthest west that I could go on the continent. So that little drive that I took out west, it lasted for 3 glorious months. It was a blast exploring the lakes and the forests and the rivers and the mountains and all those back roads. It was phenomenal. I made some friends there, and still to this day we keep in touch. Hey Sam. And just generally had a really good time. I learned a lot about country, and one day I started feeling a little bit lonely and kind of homesick for my Ontario. And besides that, finances were a real struggle. I was on EI. And like I said, I half-heartedly looked for work. So I decided to go home. I couldn't afford to stay. I barely could afford to leave. And the only problem was I didn't have a home. I had my car and a storage unit in Northern Ontario. So I was talking to my sister, and she graciously offered for me to stay at her place with her and husband for a couple of months just to get my feet back under me, which I really appreciated. It really did help. So I headed back to Ontario and landed in Eastern Ontario, where the winters are really cold. And because my stay with my sister and brother-in-law was limited, I had to quickly find a job and a place to call my own, and I failed miserably at both. Eastern Ontario is just as expensive as the rest of Ontario for rents, and jobs are hard come by for something that I personally could do. I've taken jobs at places like Tim Hortons and Burger King and McDonald's, things like that in the past, but that was before my accident, when I was able to stand at a counter for long periods of time. Well, I can't do that anymore. So my choices of job was pretty limited. So why do I live in my car? It's by choice, a little bit forced, but it's still by choice, and rent doesn't figure into it. I don't mind living in my car. I love the freedom. It's mostly financial. Who wants to pay rent? And when you leave the place, you have nothing to show for it. And with the cost of gas and food going up, it's making it really difficult. I am still unemployed, but I've been applying for jobs, and hopefully something will come through very soon. That was a bee. I love the freedom of living in my car. And it's kind of a little bit rebellious too, which I kind of like. I do have a car loan and a trailer loan and a couple of credit cards that are demanding all of my pennies. And there's very little left over even for gas or food. So I need to find work. And like I said, I'm looking. Once I find work, that'll change. Finances will be a little bit better. And while we're on that thought, why don't you hit that subscribe button and push that little bell so that you get notified the next time that I upload a video. And wouldn't hurt you to push that like button either, and share it with somebody who you know would be interested in this video. And back to the whys. Why don't I rent a room? Well, I don't have money for it. It's just too expensive. They start at $800. I could find one around $600, but I wouldn't let a rat live there. So they're quite expensive, and rents for a bachelor apartment are starting at $1,200 a month. So it's absolutely ridiculous. My funds just won't allow that. Well, I honestly do love living in my car and the freedom that it gives me. And it's taught me one thing for sure, that this is the right type of life for me. But I want a little bit more room. So I've put my car up for sale, and with those funds that I get from the sale of the car, I'll be paying off the rest of the loan and buying a bus. Why a bus? If living in a tiny SUV has taught me anything, it's taught me that I want to stand up. Sitting down or lying down are my only two choices in this car. And I'd really like to stand up to get dressed. Right now, in order to change my clothes, I'm lying back there and I'm wiggling into them. or I have to go and find a place to shower, and then I can change as well. Sometimes I'll sneak into a bathroom with clothes under my arms or in a bag or something like that and quickly change in the bathroom. I feel very uncomfortable doing that. Other times I've actually changed right here in the front seat. I'll put the visor up and the blinders on the sides, and I'll quickly change, and hopefully nobody will notice. I always try to find somewhere that is a little bit private, the end of a road, the far back parking lot of some place, somewhere where eyes aren't going to be on me and asking, what are you doing there? What are you doing there? And cooking a meal is really, really difficult in a car. If Mother Nature is not heating or freezing, she's raining on me. And if she's not raining on me, she's blowing out my burner on my stove. So it makes it really, really difficult. And I'm not willing to pull out my stove and my cook gear in the middle of a parking lot somewhere. I'm just not comfortable doing that. So I have to know where to go, where there's maybe a picnic table and some shade, or just a park somewhere that is accepting of somebody cooking and nobody pays attention to you. Most people don't pay attention to what you're doing. They might glance your way and shrug it off and move on with their life. They really don't care. And I haven't even mentioned morning coffee. I love my morning coffee fix. So I'm supporting Tim Hortons heavily. I think I'm probably one of the few people that keeps Tim Hortons open. I'd much prefer to make my own coffee, and when I can in the morning, I do. I will make my coffee, and I actually prefer it over store-bought, and the store-bought is really expensive. After a while, $2 a day, sometimes $4, that starts to add up over a month. So I've looked at other options. Vans, RVs, and as mentioned before, I do own a trailer. I looked at cargo vans, and I did a lot of research into them because I thought that would be the answer. But you can't stand up in them without a roof raise, and that was one of my boxes that I needed ticked. I had 3 main requirements. I needed to be able to stand up, I needed to be able to cook, and I needed to be able to travel back roads. So my choices were kind of limited. I looked into the ProMaster type vehicles, and they're way out of the budget. There's no way that I can afford that. Not without winning the lottery anyway. RVs are more in line with what I've been looking for. You can stand up in them, and you can get, some really nice Class C's or Class B's that are fairly short, but I never quite frankly felt that safe in them. They're not built that well, and they are very, very expensive. So getting back to my little trailer, back in 2019, when I knew I was going up north to work, I knew that housing prices were just as expensive up north as they were down south. So I bought myself a little trailer, and I parked it at a lovely trailer park for the season, and I worked out of that. So I did that for 3 years, and it was great. But the kind of lifestyle that I am wanting to live, I guess you could say, and what driving out to BC has taught me, hauling a trailer around is just not the way. I would be spending more money at campsites. If I didn't want to pay for a campsite, I would be really limited as to where I could park. And a trailer, it's harder to get it down a dirt road to get those Crown Land sites, which are really awesome. So you're left with paying for camping or camping at a Walmart. And I don't mind camping at a Walmart occasionally, but it's not for me. It's just not for me. I'd rather be backcountry. So eventually I'm going to get rid of the trailer. I do have it available, and I probably will stay in it for part of this summer. Right now it's down at my sister's place in Eastern Ontario, so I'll have to go down and get it, and then I got to figure out where to park it. It's just an anchor right now. So I'm really looking for something like a bus because it does check all the boxes. I can stand up in it. I can have a washroom in it. I can have a kitchen in it. And it can get to most back roads because I'm not looking for a full-size bus. I'm looking for a 5-window wheelchair short bus. Buses aren't made for transporting children, and they're highly regulated and really scrutinized for safety. And if you've ever Googled and watched any videos on RV accidents, trailer accidents, you'll know that those things get destroyed because they're not very well built. However, if you do the same Google search for a school bus, you'll find that the school bus comes out on top every single time. So living in a short bus, specifically a wheelchair one, ticks all the boxes. I'm able to stand up, I can have a kitchen on board, and it'll be short enough that I can get on most back roads. It will also allow me to have an onboard toilet, which is something that everyone wants to know from the van lifers. Where do you go to the bathroom? Well, that's going to be moot point with me because I'm going to have my own composting toilet on board. And I'm going to have a shower because that answers the next question that is mostly asked, and that is, how do you shower? Well, I'm putting a shower on board. Right now, if you're wondering, I shower at the local YMCA in North Bay, or I go into Callender to the community center there. There's truck stops that have showers, and there's gym memberships. I do have a gym membership with Planet Fitness, but Planet Fitness doesn't come this far up north, so I suspended my membership until I need it, and I may just cancel it altogether. If everything works out in my favor, by the time I have my bus, I won't need the membership because I'm going to have a shower on board. So, why do I live in my car? It's choice. It's financially driven, but it's freedom, and it's actually fun. It even feels a little bit rebellious. But there's downfalls too, and I'll talk about that, the downfalls of living in your vehicle, on my next video, so stay tuned. Now's a good chance to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you know when I do the next upload. I'll be talking about the pros and mostly the cons of vehicle life. It also would really help if you gave me a thumbs up. You may even know someone who would love to see this video, so share it with them. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you took the time. I'm going for a little swim if the water's not too cold. But you guys have an awesome day.